I get in the passenger seat, I get into the driver's seat, and I swear I thought she was dead.
So I literally leaned over into the trash can to stop myself from vomiting. Hello, this is Heisenberg White coming at you with another installment of the Never Ever Show. As many of you know, this is a show where I interview YouTubers in an attempt to develop a sense for their tastes in all sorts of media. Then, after our interview, we'll suggest things we believe the other person would be interested in, and after that, we'll break for a week or two and come back later to discuss what we did or didn't like. Now, my guest today is an incredibly salty and dangerous YouTuber. He's had guest spots and collaborations with other YouTubers including Baked Salmon, Mr. Gigi, and Digital Goon, a man whose technical skills and media literacy is unrivaled in the YouTube community, and now carries with him the honor of being the #1 most hated man by the Society of Cancerous Meatball Enthusiasts. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Westifer Moast.
Hey, how's everyone going? So, are you just going with that first take, and are you a professionalist? I don't know how you like to work.
Well, fortunately, I can just go back and re-record it after the fact if I need to. So
No, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure you did. I'm sure for your skill level, that was just great.
Oh, well, thank you, and I'm happy I got to talk to you today. We are hourly, correct? Has our hour started already?
We're 30 minutes into our hour.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I just need to know who to send the check to after we're done here.
Tiffany Lockhart.
Ah, okay, great.
Yeah.
I know she represents a lot of wonderful, wonderful people. So,
She's
yes.
the voice that launched 1,000 wrists.
Man, and speaking of, let's get right into it. I'm glad that we've gotten the chance to speak to each other today. I've been sort of following you for the past almost year now. You've been tiptoeing your way gradually into the TCAP community, and then all of a sudden just absolutely exploded onto the scene with some really amazing content that you and Baked Salmon have worked on together, and now you've even gone off to do a lot of independently done projects that are really still impressive and a feat of technical abilities. What I'd like to know is what has your impression been as a YouTuber for the past couple of years now of our community, and where do you see it going from now?
Well, I haven't been a YouTuber for a full year yet. My channel is only like 4 or 5 months old. I tried to do a YouTube show back in 2017, and I was sued right before it was supposed to come out. And I do blame Mr. Gigi for this because I'd always been someone who was into To Catch a Predator. I had all the episodes downloaded, and I used to watch them frequently. And before I worked from home, I would work in an office, and I always had a separate monitor set up for watching things. And every month or two, I'd be binging the To Catch a Predator episodes. And at first, your coworkers think it's funny, but then they start to get concerned. Like, am I getting tips? What am I doing? Why am I constantly watching this show? And I had never watched YouTube on, I didn't even watch it on my phone. It was just kind of something I knew of, but didn't fuck with it a lot. And sorry about the cursing. And then
It's fucking all right.
I had, the smart TV, and I just decided to open up YouTube, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that To Catch a Predator show's on here. And I found all this content that had been created, and I was so confused as to what was going on because as far as I knew, the show was still gone. And that just kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen that Blind Melon video where I think it's called, I don't fucking remember, but there's like this bee girl, and at the end, and she's like kind of shunned because she's always dressed like a bee. And at the end of the video, she finds this like place, and there's all these bees dancing around, and she's found her place. And that's kind of how I felt when I found TCAP on YouTube. But then I eventually got to Mr. Gigi's stuff, and that inspired me. I felt like, I could do stuff. I could be funny. I should be out there doing this, and all I'm doing is, I've made content for work. I make explainer videos and training videos and those types of things, but never anything where I get to actually be me and that isn't monetized. It doesn't have a dollar amount tied to it. So I created a show, and just so you know, I don't even remember what your question was, but this is what I'm answering. I created this show where I was going out and catching married men in the park who were there to pick up a prostitute who was my decoy. And so there would be 2 or 3 weeks of chatting, and I mean, I would just come up with the most ridiculous stories, because I realized the more ridiculous the story was, the more unbelievable it was, the more the guy would get hooked, because they wouldn't want to lose out on this supposed 26-year-old married girl who's used to be, you know, wild, and her husband appreciated it, but now he's embarking on a political career and he wants her to tone it down, and she wants to be, it was this whole thing. And these guys would drive from 2 and 3 hours away. They're meeting in a park, and then I come walking up with a camera and make them play games and play trivia and sing songs and do all these things that they don't want to do, or I could expose them online. So I tried doing that, you know, back when I first found TCAP. I got sued 2 days before my channel was supposed to launch, so I put everything away. And I mean, it was kind of like I had just started my business and everything, so it was a really bad time to get sued. I mean, it's never a good time to get sued, and it was a bullshit lawsuit. But I still had to pay 10 grand to hire a lawyer to represent me in Nevada, because I got sued out of a different state, and I had to hire someone to represent me there so that they would drop the charges. So it cost me 10 grand, and so I blame Mr. Gigi for costing me that money, for inspiring me in the first place. So then,
that son of a bitch.
Right? I mean, and he made it up to me by, you know, years later.
When will he stop hurting people?
I don't think he will, because he still has a diss track that he's not releasing, that I'm not going to forget about. But so that a few years later, you know, I'm showing up in live streams. I'm in Clobbering Times live streams, and it's funny because I had made some comments on videos, and Baked Salmon, well, he commented on my comments. He's like, "Hey, you're a funny guy. Will you call this number and leave like your comment about TCAP, your favorite TCAP moment?" And I'm like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Like, and I went and looked at his channel, and I don't know what I saw, but I was like, I don't, you know, and I like ignored it. I just thought he was this weird fucking guy. And like a month or 2 later, I was working, it's like 2 or 3 a.m. and I'm listening to someone's playlist, and all of a sudden this Lorne Diary comes up, and I stopped what I was doing because it seemed like something I had written, and I'm like, this is weird, and I go to his channel and I'm like, oh, it's that fucking weird guy, and I binge all of his stuff, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just commenting on all these videos like a Facebook stalker. And I asked him if we could collaborate. I'm like, hey, we should collaborate. And we ended up talking like a week or 2 later. And the first thing I did was write an episode of the Lorne Diaries. And then a month or 2 after that, we started with watching his cooking show and just doing like Mystery Science Theater type stuff, you know, just kind of being kooks. And we never meant to do any kind of serious and investigative stuff. And Bakeline.
So what I'm getting at is, or what I'm hearing is, you never even meant to do
I never even meant to do it. And that's what I think people don't understand. They think I meant to do it. They also don't know that I was legit raised by Ma. And, you know, that needs to be taken into account as well. So.
Well, thank you for opening up and sharing that little bit with me. I had no idea you were raised by Ma.
Well, later I'm going to tell the story about, I don't want to spoil it, but the meatballs and deviled eggs. It's a real tearjerker, so I hope you have plenty of tissues, and not the ones you use for your nighttime activities, like face tissues. Don't reuse.
That's great.
Don't reuse those tissues.
Abbott and Costello, Gus and Eddie, and another dynamic comedy duo. Do I even say comedy? Your videos always crack me up, but it's even more between you and Baked Salmon. Such a professional-looking project that is about something that's so ridiculous, but gives it so much legitimacy because it's so well edited and well produced. We could go on and talk about how great Baked Salmon is. Before I go ahead with the questions I had planned, it's just come up every time I do one of these. There's a part where we start to gush over other members of the community and YouTubers. Do you want to give any special shout outs to anybody whose channels you really like, or people that have had a positive impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I really like TCAP recipe stuff. I bake a lot. I've been baking for years. I've won some competitions, and To see the amount of work and effort that he puts into what he's doing, that's really great. You know, he's a pro, so I really like his stuff. You hustling me, boy. I know that Baked Salmon also gives this guy a lot of praise, and I never heard of him until Bake did his TCAP recap, and that guy's music is amazing. I'm actually making a new series where I'm looking at true crime cases, some interesting true crime cases, because I want to get out of just the Vince stuff, because that's gotten really old to me. But I'm using one of his songs without his permission, because he won't reply to me in my video. So that, he's really good. And then Clobbering Time. I mean, I don't know if anyone has been more instrumental in like really pushing Baked Salmon and I than Clobbering Time. Like in the very beginning, I had no channel. Baked Salmon had, when we did that first Bake Line, I think he had 200 subscribers, and Clobbering Time did a special stream to watch that episode with commentary. And for us, that was like crazy, because when we're making these things, we're never expecting more than 100 people to watch it. Like, we're really critical of our own work, and by the time it comes out, we've watched it and seen our portion so many times, we're kind of tired of it. So it's always really cool to see people react to it and react to certain portions. So yeah, Clobbering Time really, really hooked me up. And then of course, my girl Kat G, who I don't even know if she has a channel. I don't think she does, but she was like my first super fan, if you will, when I had like 30 subscribers. She was always trying to push me to make more. And so I like to mention Kat G, or I have a little Kat G logo that I put in most of my videos just to kind of give her a shout out.
Well, that's great. And so funny that such a niche topic and discussion and community has slowly kind of crept into the mainstream more and more as time has gone on. And with the return of Chris Hansen, with the return of some investigations back in the Crime Watch Daily days, and now this business with Onision and Vincent, and multiple big channels covering this and giving shout outs to people in our community, I think is fantastic. And it's so bizarre. Who would have thought at this point last year that the most hated man in the TCAP community wouldn't be Lorne? I never saw that coming, ever. Or at least maybe they're tied for first. We know who we're talking about here. He's given you he's been quite a worthy foe, if you will. Sort of the Lex Luthor to your Superman.
I don't agree with that at all. I think he's like, I don't know, I used to watch his Super Friends.
Solomon Grundy.
I know, not even that. I would say, who was the shittiest villain in
There was an
Super
egg-themed
Friends?
man who his bit was about everything. In the Batman live-action series with Adam West, it was played by Vincent Price, and all he did was talk in egg puns.
That's it.
Yes.
That's Vince.
There we go. Vincent Price.
That's Vince.
Yes.
I mean, because I don't see, and real quick, and I know I wanted to go back to this because also Fast Eddie, that guy has a really, really great YouTube channel. He does analysis videos, and he's really smart. Like he makes a lot of really astute observations, not just jokes. He could tell he enjoys what he's doing. So there's a lot of like laughter when he's watching and pausing. So I really like his stuff. And then of course Walls, who has provided a lot of footage that hadn't been seen before. So both those guys, great channels that I watch a lot. Anyway, so back to Vince. I feel like...
Wait, before we move to Vince, because this is going to get to be a big rabbit hole, and we can discuss it however long you'd like. I wanted to go back to talk about one of your first collaborations with Baked Salmon.
Oh, of course.
As somebody who's also written a script for Lorne's Diary, isn't it so fun to see it eventually, the way that he does it and tells it and animates it like that? It's very challenging for somebody who's even as enthusiastic as I am about creative writing. How do you do the style of video that Baked Salmon has done, where you're using as much elegant vocabulary as you can for the world's dumbest man?
Well, so that's why the Lorne Diaries always stuck out to me, because that's how I write. And so I had no problem at all writing it. And Baked Salmon, he even said the same thing. It felt like something that he wrote. If anything, I had to cut 1,000 words out of it because it was just so long. I had so much fun writing it. I probably wrote it in, I don't know, a few hours. I had a lot of the stuff that was just already in my head that I wanted to put down, the most ridiculous stuff I could think of. And, he was very surprised at what I had written, because it flowed so well with what he was already doing. Now, if you listen to a baked salmon video versus my video, it's like I fit in a lot more words per sentence because I talk and run on sentences. So he did have to change a few things just because my sentence structure is so long. But other than that, like he did it exactly as presented, and I just thought it was so good. And it was exciting for me to see, that was my first YouTube project that didn't get me sued, and it actually got to get onto YouTube, so that was really cool.
You just cannot escape the law, can you?
I cannot.
My goodness. So let's talk about Mr. Meatball himself. As of today, where do you guys stand? Are things fizzling out? Are things picking up? Do you see any of this going away anytime soon? Or just tell us what your thoughts are right now that you are allowed to tell us.
Well, so I have had to deal with the police on the matter several times. And, to be honest, it's been a few days since he kind of disappeared from Facebook, and he changed things back to look a little more professional. But I've been dealing with a personal stalker in my city since, October, November. And there'll be times where she will go dark for a week or two, and then out of the blue, it's just back. So I really think that Vince enjoys being a troll. I made the point that it doesn't matter if it's fame or infamy, as long as his name is remembered. That's what matters. And so until I see, until it's months and no one's heard from him, because he made an announcement earlier on that, watch for the new Hansen versus Predator on March 1st. That's what the website used to say. And things have been changed back now, and the Facebook page is gone, but it was also gone earlier last week, and when they came back, he said it was part of a game. So I have no reason to believe that this isn't also a part of a long con to make people think that Vince has retreated back into his hole, and then he's just going to come back with some more juvenile bullshit tomorrow or sometime next week or whenever, lull people into this false sense of security, and then he springs back up with more hilarious hijinks from Vincent Nicotra.
It is unbelievable what I've been witnessing that man and his many alt accounts have been capable of. Let me ask you this in a strictly, estimate, guess, because there's no real way to know this for sure, but what percentage of things do you think, what's the ratio between things that we know Vince has done for sure versus what we think he's done?
You mean Facebook-wise, or what are we talking?
Anything, because part of me, cannot believe that that's still him on Facebook. It makes sense, but he's still really, really going at this. I don't understand how somebody, an individual, can harbor so much hatred for so long in the most asinine, childish way while trying to play the victim. Lauren Armstrong, sorry.
So what I see is a lot of calculation, but not smart calculation, if you know what I mean. I think a lot of the trolling that's happened in the last few weeks has been purposely overboard so that he can claim plausible deniability. Because it'd be easiest to say, why would I say something so ridiculous? I'm a grown man. Why would I talk about West Moast semen? I don't even like West Moast and these other things, so that he could say it wasn't him. He's been claiming to various people that he's had nothing to do with the site and that someone spoofed him and was using it on his behalf. However, he had access to it. He could have easily went in and turn the page off so that this couldn't happen anymore.
Isn't his name literally displayed?
Of course,
as a moderator?
Yeah, he was listed as the only moderator. But he could also say that it wasn't him, and I really think that's what he was going for. So can I just go back real quick to when he was first fired? Now, this was prior to me getting an apology from Chris Hansen, which I wanted two things. I wanted an apology from Chris because I felt like he enabled this by hiring Vince and allowing him to continue, and I wanted an apology from Vince for doxing me and for accusing me of hacking him. So when Vince was first fired, I had gotten neither of these things. So I wanted to interview Vince because I wanted to get his side of the story. And I just knew that in order for Vince to have been there as long as he was, there was some sort of dirt that he had on Chris Hansen that wasn't being released. And I wanted to get that dirt. So we set up an interview, and we were supposed to do it. And then that racist text came out. At first, his sister ran interference, and then that racist text came out, and I decided, that interview was not going to happen.
Is it almost 100% that what we've been witnessing is definitely him?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I have no reason to believe that it's not him. I mean, did you see the email exchange that I posted on Twitter yesterday between him and whoever this stranger was that contacted him? I mean, the guy is a liar. I mean, he's not even trying to hide. So when he talks about the history, not only does he change things to make the narrative where I'm this unhinged, crazy person, but he completely takes himself out of it. Like there was nothing he did, and this was. So the night that I was first doxxed on New Year's Eve, I quit making videos. I told Baked Salmon I wasn't going to make videos anymore because the safety of my family is important to me, and I don't want to continue being doxxed by Vince every time I say something he doesn't like. And it's not fun to me. It's not fun when I'm making content wondering who's going to dox me because of this. Like who's going to come after me because they don't like my commentary. And, Baked Salmon, he understood, why I would want to be done after that. But then I saw Vince go on that Drama and Opinions channel, and he was telling her how I wanted a job, and they wouldn't hire me, so I was salty, and I was coming after him. And he showed a text exchange where I just looked insane because he cut all of his texts out, and it just looked like I was contacting him to threaten him. So I made
that got my blood boiling when I first saw that. Before even you or anybody else had a chance to rebuttal and prove him wrong, as I was hearing it, I'm like, something's not right. This is not the Vince I know. Yeah. Let alone what I believe the best case scenario would be from Vince's point of view, where he truly is the innocent party in all of this. The evidence was lacking and weak, and it just seems so cowardly to lie so often and so much. Well, let's be careful. I don't know all the facts, and
allegedly, right?
I may not be calling Vince a liar, but when he gets dressed in the morning, he has to take the batteries out of his smoke detector because those pants are on fire.
That's so bad.
I'm sorry. But man, what a circus, huh? What a circus to watch.
Well, to answer your question though, The thing is that because of his history, just not people only really know of him from what they've seen the last 2 months or so. I guess starting with that Onision short bus meme, but Baked Salmon and I have been covering this since May of 2019, so 9 months or so. So based off my history of knowing how he fabricates and doesn't take responsibility for things, I believe 100% of it could be Vince because I have no reason not to believe that it's Vince.
There's nobody else that would benefit.
Well, and he clearly had no strategy. There was no dirt on Chris Hansen. There was nothing. He keeps talking about some Corvette that no one cares about. I mean, the money issues of Chris Hansen are completely separate from of what he's trying to pull wool over everyone's eyes. Like this guy doxed people and said racist things, and told the victims that there was no investigation, and did some really horrible things. And then he wants to keep bringing up this Corvette like it's somehow going to change. Wait a second, Chris Hansen owes money on a Corvette? Well, I'm not sure I want to listen to this week's show. Like, I don't see what he really
that
thought.
Monster.
Yeah, I don't know what he really thought that was going to accomplish, and it's just
Chris Hansen has had controversy follow him throughout most of his professional and personal life, and he's still managed to maintain at least a portion of dignity and professionalism, and people are at least appreciating the good work that he does in spite of some of the controversy around him, where there's nothing on any level that Vince has talked about so far with Chris that would make anybody's opinion change. It's not Chris's fault that you volunteered to work for 10 months and forgot to ask for a salary.
He forgot it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that you're talking about the same things over and over again, things that really Bakeline had already reported on, and in a much better way. So all he's doing is confirming what we had already said, and then he's saying that there's no investigation. Now, if he had come out on day one of being fired on his own account and said, listen, everyone, the reason why I was fired is because there is no Onision investigation. I need you guys to know that. That would have carried so much more weight than 4 or 5 weeks later, after tons of shit posting and fake auctions for a domain name and, more doxing and bullshit, to say, oh, there's no investigation. By that point, you're the boy who just cries wolf and no one wants to hear from. You've lost all credibility.
Man, oh man. I hope the nightmare will soon be over. How funny is it that really it's just gets so much worse and worse when I believe you when you say all along it would have taken an honest apology and a little bit of professionalism to make most of this go away. But he just doubled down and doubled down and doubled down, and pretty soon he's going to have legal ramifications as he should for some of the criminal activity that we know he's done.
Exactly, and I just want to reiterate, because it's been said a few times, but had he just ignored the video that Baked Salmon and I made, he would be fine right now. Because if you go back and watch it, there weren't damning claims. I mean, he stole some content from a site and he lied about building these scripts. Like, when you really look at,
there's no speculation. Everything was
all proven
right there in black and white.
It was all proven, and really all he would have had to say is, hey, you know what? Yeah, I made up the story about, working on it. It's been a concept I've been kicking around for a year. It's something I've wanted to do for a year, whatever. Or he could have just ignored it, because no one would have seen it outside of the TCAP community. As soon as he decided that it needed to be gone, and then he started doxing me, I went on Twitter and I wanted to share my side of the story. Like, hey, I didn't dox him, I didn't hack him. This is why he came after us. But people were already sharing it, saying, hey, these are the people this was the guy that was doxed by Vince tonight. Here's their video. And they were sharing it around, and that was crazy to me to see that. No one expected that.
Vince, word of advice: the next time you get frustrated on something that you see on YouTube, do what the rest of us do. You dislike the video and you write fake and gay in the chat, and then you just leave.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Fake and gay. That's like every post they made on the Facebook page.
Right.
Are you sure you weren't helping to write those?
He could save a lot of time by just condensing a lot of his ramblings to those words and just leaving things alone.
Fake and gay. It reminded me of there used to be a book series called like Blanche DuVoe's Truly Tasteless Jokes or something like that. I used to go to the mall when I was in junior high school and read them at B. Dalton, and they were just there was chapters on blondes and blacks, and it was these and that's what it sounds like all of his comedy is based off of, these tasteless joke books from the early 90s.
Well, it's fun to have, it's not fun. It's easy to poke fun at the absolute low-hanging fruit that is the worst stereotype of any person. And it is funny to see somebody have a problem, have such a broad issue with so many people based on sexuality, sexual orientation, gender, race, and everybody, regardless of those things, has unified together to hate him individually. It's stupid and pointless and damaging to our society to hate entire groups of people that you've never met.
So instead, but it's fine for everyone to group up and hate this one guy who's a real piece of shit. And a warning. I mean, this should be a cautionary tale.
We built a whole community out of that whole idea. And I've made better friends here than I have in my entire life. Some fantastic people. Very mature, professional, funny, kind people have come together to poke fun at the guys on this show, and it just so happened that somebody who doesn't like to be poked, as he said before, has been the center of attention here and refuses to get out of the spotlight.
Well, and it's funny because in our early text, back in May, June, when him and I were working on this Chris Hansen comeback, and I was giving him all these suggestions that he was unable to put into action, I told him, hey, you need to keep your name off of this. You're way too front and center. And his response was, Wes, I'm working on this. My name should be all over it. And I said, all right, but as soon as something goes wrong, You're going to be the scale. And I have all this. Like, I really did predict that all of this would happen. And, it was, to him, the payment for him was being able to be in the circle of Chris Hansen. And he enjoyed that payment. He was paid in full as far as that goes. His face was everywhere. His name was everywhere. He was linked in articles, and he really did get that clout payment. And, had he just not flown so close to the fucking sun, his Icarus wings wouldn't have melted, and he'd still be showing his really handsome face on live streams every week.
Be careful what you wish for, folks. Applaud his ambition to seek out something he wanted to do, but 0 out of 10 for the follow through. We can talk about Vince for hours, and I almost want to. But I think for the sake of editing this video and our time today, I'd like to ask you just a couple of random questions,
of course,
so I can get to know you as an individual. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, my first question to you, Mr. Westifer. Is it okay if I call you Westifer as your full name?
Yeah, that is my full given name.
Okay. Have you ever been to a casino or been gambling? And if so, what luck have you had?
So I lived in Las Vegas for like 13 or 14 years. So yeah, I've been to quite a few casinos, and I don't really gamble, not because I'm against it, but if you live there long enough, you know a lot of people who have lost everything from gambling. So if I ever do go to a casino now, it's just I'm gonna spend $100-$200 that I plan on not coming home with, because I know I'm not going to, and I just play and get free drinks. So that's how I do it.
There's a casino pretty close to where I live that I had never been gambling until I think I went like maybe about this time last year for the first time. I've since developed a good like rhythm and system and repetition. Like I do the same thing every time I go in. I'm a big slot jockey. I don't have the attention to detail to play cards, but I've had some good luck, mostly bad. I figure I'm probably in debt to the casino more than I've taken from them. I think my best night, I walked away with about maybe $3,000 more than I entered, but given that 5 times before then I probably lost money, it probably just balanced out. It's still, it is incredibly addicting, and you're right, it's there's a fine line between being a fun gambling enthusiast to really, I mean, there were some dark moments for me too, where I went in knowing, okay, I'm going to go in with $200, and if I blow that, then I'm going to leave. And then I blow it, and I go, well, I'm getting paid soon. Let's take $200 out.
And then I just won't come back next week.
Yeah, and then I can cash advance on my credit card. Like, yeah, let's go. And shockingly, those were never good decisions. I've had to admit to myself that I actually do tend to have a bit of a gambling addiction problem whenever I'm there, and like really drinking too, when my inhibitions are lowered and I can just, woo, let's go,
Well, I mean, with what you told me off the record, and I wasn't supposed to bring up, I think the meth also might play into that. When you're mething and gambling, then those are two things that you probably shouldn't be doing.
Well, you just talked yourself out of a meth discount, so.
Whoa.
Oh, these vices of ours.
Well, maybe.
Okay, that's good. You sound like a pretty sensible guy when it comes to that. That's good.
Well, I mean, we'll go on about it later, but I know a guy who literally, lost everything because of gambling, and it's a pretty crazy story. But we'll talk about it later in my things I want you to check out. So.
Oh, good. Okay. What was the last professional sporting event that you attended in person?
Wow. Okay. It was the day before 9/11. I was in college. I just started college after getting out of the military, and we got tickets to a Padres game in San Diego. And me and my buddy, we go to the game, and it's supposed to start at 7 o'clock, and one of the light banks would not turn on, so they couldn't start the game. And me and my buddy were just talking, and I mentioned that when I was a kid, I used to be really scared of bombings, hijackings, because in the 80s that was reported on a ton, hijackings. And we were talking about how like that stuff never happens now. You never hear about things like that. And then the game was canceled, and they gave us tickets to come back September 11th, 2001. and then the next morning wake up and find out that planes had been hijacked. And I'd been out of the military 30 days. Had I still been in, they would have forced me to stay in an additional 2.5 years because of my career field was critically manned. So it was crazy. It was really crazy. But yeah, so that Padre game where it didn't actually even start, there was no game, was the last professional sporting event I've been to.
Wow. I gotta say, when I was thinking of questions to ask and the sports topic came up, I did not expect the story to begin with, so it was the day before 9/11. But
isn't that how most stories start?
All the good ones, yeah, I guess. That's wild. That's crazy. I'm even more surprised that it's been 20 years since you've been to a basketball, football game of any kind.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. I think, other than baseball, live sports, sports are much better on TV. Like, football sucks in person. I've gone to, I've taken my kid to wrestling matches and to see the Globetrotters and shit like that, but those aren't real. Oh, you know what? I went to a hockey game, but that doesn't count because hockey sucks, so I wasn't even paying attention to what was going on.
I kind of agree and disagree on the football thing. I'm a Buffalo fan, a Bills fan. The game is secondary to what the day's about. It's all about the tailgating and the partying and getting drunk.
but then you're going to a tailgating event,
Pretty much that also happens to have a football
The Bills
game
haven't played
to it.
Actual football since Jim Kelly retired, so everything that you're watching is just
Hey.
It's
Playoffs,
like a glorified...
2 out of the last 3 years,
Okay,
buckaroo.
let me ask you a question. When they got to the playoffs, did you have any doubt in your mind that they would be bounced by the second game?
Nah, to be honest, I'm surprised they even got there in the first place.
So it's like...
I'm allowed to make those jokes, you're not.
Hey, I was a Chargers fan for my whole life, so are you really going to say you had it worse than me? At least the Bills got to lose 4 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah, lucky us.
Yeah, right? Well, you know how many people would have loved to be the second ugliest girl at the dance like the Buffalo Bills were?
Oh, man. Hey, next year is the year, by the way. Mark my
next
words.
year is the year they'll finish 9-7 and get bounced in the wild card. You're right, absolutely.
I don't know what to say because I'm mad, but you're probably right. So I'm just going to move on. Okay, this will be a fun one. What is the most hypocritical thing that you do?
I don't know. The most hypocritical thing I do. Okay. Well, I don't know if this would be considered hypocritical, but I work in marketing. I make commercials and I'm responsible for a lot of that stuff. But I actually get anxiety from. I can't watch them. I can't watch live TV with commercial. It gives me anxiety. It always has. And I hate advertising. Absolutely detest it. But it's...
Yeah, and as somebody who's even I've worked internships at advertising agencies. I've studied marketing and things. So it's just what I sort of went to college for too. It's jarring now because every service I have and pay for, Netflix, YouTube Premium, Hulu without it, I don't watch commercials anymore. So when I do see them on live TV, it's like, oh my god, people can put up with
and
this.
And they just go on and on. And I won't get into the whole thing, but it's all supply and demand too, because less people are watching network television, less people are watching cable. They have to fit in more commercial breaks to, pay the salaries of these people who are on these shows. And when you really think about it, my favorite show of all time is Seinfeld, and that show only exists to sell Ford's and Verizon service in between, commercial breaks. And when you look at television that way, it's all just a vehicle to get into your home to sell you products. So and I feel like I'm always being pandered to, and it kind of fucks me up. Like I'm watching a movie, and I took my kid to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and Baby Groot's running around, and all I'm thinking is, they did this for marketing. Like, oh, look at the cute little baby Groot. I need to go buy a t-shirt with that, or and I just ruin these things for myself by thinking about...
That's a ridiculous idea. By the way, this video is sponsored by Disney Plus. Watch The Mandalorian and your Baby Yoda in their exciting adventures.
But so hypocritical wise, I work in marketing. I make all my money from marketing or consulting regarding marketing, but I can't stand advertising, and I detest it with all my being.
I've thought about this too. I have a lot of bad health habits. I'm a former smoker. I still vape, and thankfully I haven't had a cigarette in 2 or 3 years. So I'm hoping to keep it that way. But I also drink a lot. I've made some tremendous strides in these last few months, though, cutting back my alcohol. On the weekends, anything goes. But it used to be my anxiety was so bad. I would get so worked up at work in this office culture that otherwise was probably as mundane as it can get. But I was just under so much stress, and I didn't know how to cope with it, that I would come home and just drink just to bring myself down from the stress of work. And I was having 7 or 8 drinks a night during the weekdays, waking up feeling not well rested because I didn't sleep well. And thankfully, to go back to the point is I'm always telling people how they can improve their health now. I'm not the like, oh, you should go to the gym, man, kind of guy, but I'm trying to look out for people. I hate that people still smoke cigarettes, even though I was there at one point, and I understand. My biggest pet peeve is that I see people when I'm in the car with them, or even know that they do this, is texting and driving. And I'm not gonna lie, every now and then I might take a peek at my phone and mess around with it a little bit when I'm driving, but I hate to see it because it's like, oh, that's nice that you just are ready to kill us both. But
yeah, no, that's one thing I don't. My brother passed in a car accident. The other driver was texting, so it can always wait. And
absolutely,
I don't text.
It's always something small, like let me just change the song real quick, and then you see there's an alert on your phone. You're like, oh, what's it? Was work calling me? Like, is it? And it's so easy to get distracted. And as somebody who drives almost 24/7 for his job, as I do, I've had to really I'm driving a company vehicle here. I can't risk this anymore. And I bought a dash cam, too, to sort of protect myself if I ever witness anything or if I'm in an accident of any kind. But it's like they're designed to distract you. Like, blink, blink, blink. Let
me ask you a question. So basically what you're telling me is you drive truck, and you're driving 24 hours a day, and you got a dash cam so that you can probably show your Mr. Penis to whatever catfish you're talking to at the time.
Well, dick pics can only go so far, but dick videos...
Well, yeah, there's a big market for that, and I know a guy, it's me, who will buy those videos from you for a very, very low price via PayPal or Cash App.
Let's talk after the show.
Definitely.
All right.
The smaller the better, so I'm sure you'll be just fine.
Time for Dan's big cash payout.
I've got a weird fetish. I love really, really small guys.
You and child molesters seem to have that in common. That's nice.
Yeah, so we'll definitely hook up after this thing and see how we can make use of it.
Excellent, yes. I love to network just for this reason. Business transactions, yes.
Yeah.
Expand one's portfolio, yes.
So, but you were saying, so I work from home.
Oh, and that's gotta be nice.
The best. I've been working from home for about 5 years now. Ever since I moved from Nevada, I've been in a home office, and I mean, I smoke not cigarettes. So it's great to be able to do that, whenever I want, and I can blast music if I want. I watch a lot of YouTube while I work, and I actually can't work in silence. I have to have, it can't be music. Music gives me anxiety. It gets me really frustrated while I'm working. But I can listen to YouTube videos all day long, and I do, and I'm very productive that way. But not having to deal with office politics and there's no corporate. I don't know. It's just it's really nice.
Office culture is the worst.
Well, so I've been lucky. I worked in dating for like the last 10 years, and those are some of the most lax. I mean, there's like sexual harassment doesn't exist. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that like women, guys in general, like there's just a lot of inappropriate conversations going on. Like openly smoking marijuana in the office is like encouraged because it's going to help with your creativity. Yeah, so I mean, like I've been super lucky the last, maybe it hasn't been 10 years or so, in some of the the corporate environments that I find.
No, it's just it's the little things. I'm the youngest one in my office. For a long time, I was the only single person in the office too. All these people were married with children and grown up, but I've recently started a relationship. But the
very nice.
thanks, yes. The little thing, like the mundane small talk that people need to fill the silence with. If it was up to me, I would just walk past people and just not talk to them. But they go, hey, you catch a game this weekend? How about this weather, huh? Like, oh man, when is it gonna stop snowing? Like, just shoot me in the fucking head. Yeah. Oh my god. I can't take it. The fluorescent lights, the meetings that could have been emails. The fact that I could do my job from home, but for whatever reason they want me to be in the office.
What about the meetings about meetings? When you have a meeting and you're discussing a meeting that's going to happen like in a week. I don't think anything makes me more used to make me more upset than that. Like we're meeting
I used to get anxious at work too, just because I didn't want to let anybody down. Obviously, there was a lot on me, but I have two bosses. One is the straightest shooter guy who says, "We got to get on this. You got to do this better. Let's go." And I love that. The other guy is sometimes it's a little like, you really should be doing this. I understand if you can't do it, but maybe we can try to do this a little bit. We can work together, and just tell me what to do. I'll fucking do it. Let's go, man. It's a good. Don't get me wrong. It's a great job. The best I've ever had. The best paying I've ever had. It's definitely going to launch me into a secure career as time goes on. But yeah, office culture is the worst. And real quick, to go back to sort of what we were discussing about health things and habits, you might agree with this, and I hope you do. I was miserable for a long time because of the bad habits I had and what I thought was just what was just wrong with me, and there was no cure. I thought that I was just always going to be depressed or anxious, and there was no cure, and the cure was there was a cure, and it was a drink. But I got eventually my parents were the ones that sort of pushed me to say, like, I was doing things that just weren't normal. Like, I was sleeping for I could sleep if I didn't have to do anything on like a Saturday, I could sleep from Friday night for about 16 hours and still wake up exhausted and take a nap the same day. I was eating like crazy, drinking like crazy, but I've had some major dietary changes in the last year. My parents encouraged me to get some help. I've sought counseling and a psychiatrist who's prescribed some drugs for me to help with the depression and anxiety. I went to a sleep specialist, and they actually diagnosed me with central sleep apnea, which explained why I was always sleeping and never woke up energized. And I have never felt better than I do right now because I took a little bit of extra steps to do some self-care. And it isn't as simple as just go outside more, just go to the gym. Like you have to take, if it really is as debilitating as it is, you have to go get the extra help, and do not feel ashamed for doing it, because it was amazing. It was a godsend for me, and now I'm drinking less than I ever have. I'm working out. I'm feeling motivated, well rested in the morning.
Can I cut you off real quick?
Please go ahead.
Guys, you're here with Moast, and we've got Dan Heisenberg on, and he's really wanting to tell you about the Most Healthy 2020 plan. That's something new that I've got coming out. And a year ago, Dan was what I would call a fucking complete mess. He wasn't sleeping. He was eating like shit. He had bad health habits. And he came to me and he said, "Wes." And I said, "Yes, Dan." He said, "What can I do?" And I looked at him in his face and I said, "Dan, you can look at yourself and say, you're worth everything." And I don't want to brag, but that really changed his life. And if you buy my book and the company cassette, you're going to learn the super secret tips to success in 2020. You can be your most healthy you. Go ahead, back to you, Dan.
There is help out there, and there is no easy answer. But there actually is an easy answer, and you can get it now for $29.99. a month. If you use discount code Heisenberg, it'll get you an additional 15% off. I can't recommend this man's system enough. He would tell me things like, just cheer up and relax.
Stop being sad, you bitch.
And I can't believe it worked.
Chapter 2, stop being sad, you bitch.
I owe him everything. This is not accredited in any way, but that's just because the government isn't ready to endorse the universal cure for depression and anxiety.
Well, I don't like to play the race card, but I do feel like in this scenario that the government is trying to keep me down. They don't
Well, the
wanna
pharmaceutical industry could stand to lose a lot of money if the secret gets out that Wes is handing out the cure for every mental disease.
The cure to depression is stop being so fucking depressed. I'm tired of it already.
You stupid piece of shit.
Well, like you can, and that's really like an advanced session. But the first one is just you tell people how tired you are of it and why can't they be happy. You just made dinner or you just washed dishes. These are really easy things you can
do. To play off of overeating. I have a food question for you.
Yes.
All right, here's a hypothetical. A table of desserts lay before you. There are several options, and they're all your favorite version of these things. Ice cream, cake, pie, brownies, and cookies. Which of these do you attack first?
The pie.
I agree. I'm a big pie enthusiast. I think
I like
cake overshadows it, but yes. Apple, blueberry, cherry, strawberry.
Oh, so this is confirmable, but in 2001, the only fair baking competition that I ever entered, there were like 200 blue hairs, the San Diego Fair. I won second place with my caramel apple pie with the oatmeal strudel topping. So that's a shortbread crust, that's a caramel apple, it's a nice tall pie with a crumbly oatmeal cookie-like strudel on top, and it's a winner.
You're gonna have to pass that on to TCAP Recipes. You guys should collaborate in a video like that. Maybe his next venture is the TCAPist Recipes, and we can all pass down our family recipes through the show.
He refuses to pay a licensing fee to Moast Industries, so him and I will not be working together, and he is not to say my name or use the word most in any of his videos, or I will copyright strike.
Sure, and 1/4 of a compass is already out of the question. He can't say west, obviously.
And he can't say anything west. So West Coast, he'll have to say left coast,
Yeah.
and that's not on me. This is he created this issue, and he knows what he did.
This is the 100th. No, it's like the 4th. Every episode I've done so far, somebody's brought up TCAP Recipes. I love it. He's gonna get a kick out of it too.
He won't get a kick out of this lawsuit. So you guys are acting like I'm joking. There will be a lawsuit. I'll take his dog, and his dog will be my new partner in making videos, and see how he likes that.
Wow, you're gonna just gun him where it hurts, huh? Wow.
I'm going right for the big guns.
All right, this is number 5 of the 10 questions I have for you, and this is timely given the ongoing epidemic of the coronavirus. I would love to know, what is the sickest that you have ever been?
When I was in 3rd grade, I woke up one morning and it felt like I had a full body cramp, and it was unexplainable. Like I couldn't move without my whole body hurting, and it wasn't a growing pain. Like you don't get a full body growing pain. But I felt almost paralyzed, and I remember my mom's solution was just for me not to go to school, and I was laying in great pain for several hours, and then eventually it just stopped, and I was, my version of fine.
So you got a cramp.
It wasn't a fucking cramp. It was like a...
Yeah.
You got a Charlie horse? No, it was like... It was unlike anything I've ever, like my whole body.
Just a passing case of cerebral palsy. You got over it.
Maybe well, I mean, who knows what it did to my brain, because I mean, I do have a really weird sense of humor, and my thought processes are sometimes pretty off. But it was really weird. Like I just woke up and couldn't move, and my mom was like, "Oh, that's normal," Yeah,
okay, I guess you can stay home, you faker.
Yeah, right. What do you got? Like a multiplication test you don't want to do today? I was really good at multiplication. I literally could not move, and then it just went away.
I had a habit of going to the nurse's office when I was in elementary school a lot, when I was like just bored.
Yo, I would do the same shit.
Yeah, which eventually came to bite me in the ass in a real boy who cried wolf sort of scenario, where one day in class I was just feeling 100 degrees and I was about to pass out and puke, and like twice my teacher was like, sure, Dan, like, yeah, whatever. Until I, like, literally leaned over into the trash can and lunged myself towards it to stop myself from vomiting, and she's like, does anybody want to take Dan to the nurse's office real quick? And I was out for like 3 days. It was like the worst flu I ever had in my life, but nobody believed me for a while.
See what you did?
Yeah.
I'm really glad I'm getting this. You know, it's like funny you were interviewing me, but I'm really getting an insight into who you are as a person and your desperate need for attention, love, and support.
That's
and
look. I mean, it was supposed to be that, with both of us, but really, this is about you. I would like to remind the viewers and listeners to like and subscribe to this video. Share it with 10 of your friends and family, or else you will have bad luck for 10 years. But that, that's just in my notes.
Remind them to love you too, because that's also something that you need: love and adore, and maybe pray for Dan in your prayers tonight, to whatever deity you may or may not pray to. Mention him.
If anybody is even listening to this point in the video, I want you to comment in the video, Dan, you are handsome and everybody loves you.
Everything. All right, sorry about that.
All right, here we go. What is something you haven't done before but would like to someday do? Figures on the Never Ever show, I would ask you something like that.
So I know a lot of people say shit like bungee jump or skydive, but fuck all those things. What I want to do that I haven't done before. It's so weird, right? But I've always had if I could eat dinner with one celebrity, who would it be, or two celebrities? I wanna meet Tim and Eric, just because I feel like these guys have been so influential in my, just their style of comedy. When I first saw it, it blew me away. And it just really opened my eyes to alt comedy and not everything being so set up joke. And it made me feel like it's okay that my comedic process is sometimes pretty weird, because someone will get it. It's not for everyone, but I would love to meet Tim and Eric.
Tim and Eric walked so Eric Andre could run.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, they're all awesome, those guys. Well, that's good. That's a good answer. I love that show.
I loved all of them. Tom Goes to the Mayor.
Everything that they pop up in, outside of the show, even whenever
I see
are in other movies.
Whenever I see Tim Heidecker's face in anything, I just start laughing, because the guy is. Tom Goes to the Mayor was my first experience with them, and that show just blew me away. At first, I was very confused by it. It's very weird, stop motion, cheap looking, but I just love the comedy style so much, and everything they've done since. I'm a big fan. My kid, he's 13. He also loves some Tim and Eric, so I did something right there.
Oh, that's great. All right, here's a thinker, and I want you to really take the time to think about this. Who is the most interesting person you know?
Okay, his name is Jan, and he used to be in a musical group called...
Doxer! No, go ahead, sorry.
He used to be in a musical group called The Happenings, and they had a hit called See You in September. He was in the movie All That Jazz. His parents were both concentration camp survivors, and when they left, they moved to New York, and his father was a musician, a great musician, and he actually has his memoirs where he was played violin, and at the concentration camp he lived because he was such a talented musician. He would be playing violin while the Nazi guards were violating these incoming women, and he'd be basically playing romantic music, and moved to New York, and he takes his music and he's playing, and eventually he builds a music empire where he's working with Sinatra, Mel Torme, these really heavy hitters back in the day. And when he passed, he left the business to Jan, who also very talented musician. The guy had at the answering machine tapes used to be a thing, with these funny tapes, outgoing. He made his own tape, and he's a hustler. He would take it to record. He sold 100,000 copies at $3 a piece in 1982. And like I said, he was working for Billboard magazine, and the guy moved to Las Vegas and started gambling, and it's just such a cautionary tale. Lost the $600,000 house, and living in a weekly rental on the Las Vegas Strip. And recently, if you look up this guy's story, there was a story that went worldwide. He was gambling with this woman, this much younger woman hanging out with him. They're gambling together, and he puts the money in, and she pulls the lever on the machine and hits a jackpot, like a good amount of money. I don't remember if it was 100,000, some high amount of money. And by the rules of the casino, because she pulled the lever or pushed the button, that was her money, even though and she took it. And so it became like, all of a sudden, this guy who I know, he's a worldwide story because he let some woman pull the lever on his slot machine, and she took every dime and gave him nothing.
That's awful.
So yeah, this is, and it's funny because I actually met him through another guy who they made a movie about called Lay the Favorite. That's the name of the movie. This guy is Alan Dinkinson, and they call themselves the Jewish Mafia in Las Vegas. I used to do all their IT work. But yeah, there's a movie made about this guy, Alan Dinkinson. He's played by Bruce Willis in the movie. They got nothing right about him. They completely fabricated everything. Like, it's not the guy I know at all. But he introduced me to this guy, Jan, who I also did some computer work for. And me and another buddy who also knows him, there's an ongoing joke, because when I went to Jan's house the first time, or the hotel, to work on his computer, he kept trying to give me dumplings from the refrigerator. And he kept going, eat the dumplings. Come on, have a dumpling. Who doesn't want a dumpling? And it was just like the most Seinfeld-like thing that this guy just won't fucking stop. And when I got off the elevator, and this is not bullshit, I get off the elevator at this weekly, because right next door to a place that Eric Estrada is always doing commercials for, by the way. He lives at this weekly shithole place. And I get off the elevator, and they're wheeling a body, like the coroner's wheeling a body covered out of one of the rooms. And I don't see this, ordinarily. This just doesn't happen where I live. And so I'm just kind of shocked, and they wheel the person past me, and I go to Jan's room, and I go, what happened? He goes, what? I go, the coroner. He goes, oh, that? Probably some junkie whore overdosed again. Like, it was just the most natural thing in the world.
Gosh.
And I mean, this guy used to live in a 600, at the time when 600,000 was $1 million, he lived in a $600,000 house, and now he's living in some place where they're willing a body past him, and it's like, seeing dominoes get delivered to someone, and it's just no big deal.
So he was like, you could get those dumplings in the refrigerator.
Have some dumplings in the fridge. Yeah, they're good. Smell my breath. I haven't even had one today. They're good.
That is an interesting person with lots of interesting stories. A great answer to that question.
So yeah, and I mean, gold records on the wall, everything. And this guy
Wow.
is absolutely a cautionary tale of what happens when you have an addictive. Because he lost the business he moved to Las Vegas because he lost the business that his father had left him, this huge empire, through gambling. And then he moved to the worst place you can possibly live if you have a gambling addiction.
Yeah, Jesus. That's crazy. That's what a life. What a series of lives from his parents even down to him. That's crazy. When was the last time you spoke with him?
It was like a year ago. He's running this, I guess you would call it, scam, where he does 1 million different voices. That's why he did so well with the answering machine tapes. He had like 30 different phones, and I'm just picturing, Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
And he has them all labeled. Excuse me. And he calls people out of the white pages. He has white pages from all over the U.S. He'll call people at random, and he'll talk to them he asks them if they want information on this, always NFL games, because there's a lot more action. There's less games. There's more action at one time. But long story short, he convinces these people that Mr. Big, who's the man at the top, has this information on the games that he could, that maybe he'd be willing to share. And the first one's always $50, $100, and these people will send him cash for this tip, that this guy, and he doesn't outright say I have insider information, but he alludes to it. And so half the people, say the Chargers are playing the Raiders. Half the people get the Chargers, half the people get the Raiders. And then these people, whoever wins, they call back the next week. and they want to place another, they want to buy this week's pick for $100. He's like, yeah, I can't. And each guy's a different character that he's playing, so he might have to transfer from Terry to Bill, and then Bill picks up this phone and Bill's talking to the guy, and Bill's like, Mr. Big's too busy to deal with any of you guys, these small guys. We're actually cutting all your accounts. You won't be able to do, and the guy will go like, well, most people will go okay, and some guys will go like, well, hold on, how much do I need to pay? He's had people send him $5,000 cash in the mail to the post office box. And here's the fucked up part. He will go and pick up $15,000, that's been accumulated over the last week or two that's sitting in this post office box. He'll pick it up and he'll call, and it's a buddy of mine it's his post office box that he lets the money go to. He'll pick it up at my buddy's house, and on his way home, he'll stop at the casino. And he'll end up calling my friend a few hours later and asking if he can borrow the weekly rent for his hotel.
Jeez. Well, cautionary tale says that's a pretty accurate sounding, I guess. All right, here's one of the last couple of questions I got for you here. I don't know if you're a big film buff, but if you could remake any film with your dream cast, what would it be, and who would be in it?
I'm going to say the answer everyone's going to say. Herbie Goes Bananas.
Really? Not Seattle Bareback Boys?
Well, no. Seattle Bareback Boys, now you're asking about remakes, and if a movie's made to perfection, why would you remake it? It had everything. It had Seattle.
Oh, I see.
It had Bareback, and it had boys. In this case, men, just so everyone's clear. Then they were all barebacking in Seattle. I mean, the title told you everything that you need. Like Star Wars, what could that be? Like, I know it's going to be stars, I know there's going to be wars, but it doesn't tell me Darth Vader, it doesn't tell me Leia, it doesn't tell me all those other rich things. Now, with Seattle Bareback Boys, I know exactly what I'm getting. And sometimes...
Yeah, I actually have a DVD copy here, and you actually were able to get a critic's summary on the back, where you said 10 out of 10 performance, the little Justin is his best he's been in years.
Well, and I want to add an asterisk to that, because Seattle Bareback Boys 2 came out, and it's the Godfather 2 of gay porn, and I'm.
But it's Seattle Bareback Boys 2, the comeback.
No, that actually takes place so it's Seattle Bareback Boys 2, the comeback, Boston. And it's all about the Seattle Bareback Boy. Now, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. There's a rodeo competition, and they need to get to Boston, the home of rodeo, and they rent a van. The van breaks down, and how are these guys going to make money? Well, I don't think I need to tell you, there's a lot of bareback. So I couldn't recommend that more. I would give that one 11 out of 10 if my editor would let me, but Baked Salmon is he lets a lot of things slide, but when it comes to rating hardcore bareback men porn, I have to stick to his very strict rules, or it could be the end of Bakeline, as far as we know it.
I'm glad you both carry with you some journalistic integrity. That's nice. How about we talk about a more mainstream film then? What are some of your favorite or like movies that you should have liked but didn't because they weren't done right? So
here's the thing. I watch a lot of movies that are so bad they're good. I really enjoy those types of movies. So, I mean, I just watched Pandemic again this week, and Miami Connection, and The Room. Jim Cotta. Jim Cotta is probably my favorite movie because it's just so bad. But if I like a movie, I can't think of how it would be better remade. And if I don't like a movie, I'm the king of turning movies off with like 8 minutes to go because I feel like they've wasted enough of my time.
You like Mac and Me?
And Mac and Me's amazing. I think McDonald's should make more movies that rip off.
An absolute cinema classic.
Other movies, yeah. Mac and Me's amazing. I mean, it's no Jim Cotta. And if you're gonna, I mean, when you're talking about movies that mix and marry the lovely turns and twists of gymnastics with the brutal savagery of karate, it doesn't get any better than Jim Cotta. No one's done it better before or since.
What about an animated movie you'd like to see live action?
I don't think any animated movie should be made live action. I think a lot more movies would be better off had they been animated.
You think we should even go backwards and animate some live action movies?
Well, I don't know if that would be called going backwards. I mean, think of Toy Story. Would Toy Story be the beloved classic it was if it was live action? I
think it would be creepy.
It would be very creepy. I think the the animation really adds to it. And any of these movies, the Secret Life of Pets, Minions, all those things, they couldn't exist without being anime. I think live action, a lot of times you see things look so much more fake when they do CGI and stuff like that. Like that, if it was just an animated movie, you're completely taken out of that mindset of that doesn't look real or that doesn't quite match. I mean, the Phantom Menace, I remember watching the Phantom Menace and thinking it looked like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The CGI was so
Let's
bad.
leave the Phantom Menace back where it should be with the prequels, as the greatest trilogy in the series.
Well, now some people are saying, listen, now some people are saying that the prequels were
I love that it's
because
kind of
they
like
hated
they've kind of had a resurgence on Reddit. At least they have the prequels. People just love them because they're just such a mess with so much memeability that you sort of accidentally start to like it again. You know.
Well, I'm finding a lot of commentary channels that are talking about how now that they're going back and watching it, and they're like really good movies. And I think they hate the fact that Disney bought the series so much. They hate the new Disney trilogy that they want to go back to the last George Lucas trilogy and say like, well, actually, this guy, he really knew what he was doing, and this makes some. But I mean, I remember watching those movies and just being bored to fucking tears.
Yeah.
They were so bad. I wanted to like the Phantom Menace so much. And you know what? So okay, here's one remake. So the rumor at the time was that Haley Joel Osment was up for the role of Anakin Skywalker, and I mean that I think had that choice been made, it would have made so much more sense because he was older than Jake Lloyd. Was that his name? He was older than the kid who played Anakin in the movie, and it made more sense because in the next movie it was like Padme didn't really age, but Anakin aged a whole bunch. Like, how does that work? It would have made more sense if they would have gone with an actor like Haley Joel Osment, and he's a really good actor, or I mean, he was a really good child actor. So that kid that they used was just brutally bad. I thought it reminded me a lot of the old Dennis the Menace TV show because that kid Jay North just yelled a lot. He yelled every line. He fucking yelled. He couldn't say anything without yelling, and I felt that's like how Anakin was. So it was
But this isn't the Star Wars show. This is the Never Ever show. Let's not get distracted here. This is another rabbit hole I'd very much like to avoid because we could lose ourselves in it pretty easily. I got 2 more questions for you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Do you have any dating horror stories?
Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. Which one? So there was and no shit, this is all like within 3 months. I was almost robbed in Salem. Let's do the drunk girl at Starbucks because this is a good one.
Ooh.
We met online where most things happen. I was working for a dating website, so it was pretty natural to meet on a dating website. And we planned to meet. We talked for several days, and I don't really like to chat for like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, let's meet up and see if there's any chemistry here. And long story short, she gets dropped off, and she stumbled. She's like an hour and a half late, and so already I was like, ready to leave. But she was messaging me and letting me know what was going on, really communicating with me. But she showed up, and she was so drunk, I thought she was on heroin. I'd never seen anyone that drunk before, and my family was visiting me, so they were at my house, and I try and get her out of Starbucks because she starts talking very loud about anal sex, and there's like people here, and she was asking me my thoughts on it because she was very drunk, and she just wanted to know what my thoughts are on anal sex. And I think Starbucks is a great place to have that conversation. If you're gonna have it anywhere like Walmart, Starbucks, a McDonald's, Playland, those are great areas to have anal sex conversations. But I wanted to get her out of there, so whoever dropped her off was long gone, and I stand up to walk her out, and I'm very uncomfortable. And I walk her out and I ask her, "What drug did you do?" And she said, I didn't do drugs. And I was like, "Are you on heroin?" Because I refused to believe it. And she said, "No, I drank a bottle of whiskey." And I'm like, "Okay, where's your house?" And she's like, "Oh, you can't take me home. My roommate's really mad. I'm seeing a black person, so they told me I need to live with you."
What?
And like, so this girl was a classical flute player.
Those flute players are trouble, I'll tell you.
We talked about cartoons, like we talked marketing stuff. Like, she was a we had really good conversations. I had no reason to believe that she was going to show up smashed drunk. So I put her in the passenger seat of my car, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do because I can't take her to my house. Oh, and she had dropped her phone in the car when she was getting out of it, so she didn't have her phone. And this plays in later because I'm trying to figure out what I can do with this drunk girl. I put her in the passenger seat, I get into the driver's seat, and I swear I thought she was dead. I thought she had died on the way from me walking around the back of the car. I put my phone under her nose, and I see, the condensation, so I know she's still breathing. And I'm sitting here just panicking. Like, I really don't know what to do. I'm not trained on what to do if you put a girl in the front seat of your car, and then you think she's dead. So I go, okay, well, I'm going to go to a hotel, because I really don't know what else to do. I can't drive her around all night. I'm afraid the police are going to come up and think like I murdered this girl and just shoot first and ask questions later. So I take her to this hotel, and she's, passed out. And I go to the front desk, and I'm, charming these ladies, and they're like, oh, I don't see a ring. You should date my daughter. She would love a funny guy like you. And I'm like, yeah, have your daughter call me up, and all this other ha ha ha. And I get my room key, and then I go outside, and I come walking in with this like tiny passed out white girl over my shoulder. I'm like, well, you guys have a good night. And I get into the elevator, and we're going up to the room, and she wakes up, and she's like, hey, did we have sex? And I'm like, well, whoa, what? And so she's awake for like 20 minutes. And she's telling me these horror stories about her roommate and how he makes her do these awful, and he's like 80 or 70 or some shit. He makes her do these awful things, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do or say. I can't leave her in the hotel room because it's in my name with my credit card, and I don't know her. And finally, I realized she can log into her phone account from my phone, get her roommate's phone number because she didn't know their number, and call them so they can come and pick her up. And I'm hearing the argument. He's like, no, you go home with that black piece of shit. She's like, he says I can't go to his house because his family's there. Yeah, that's the reason why. Otherwise, I would have moved her in that night. Right. So he agrees to pick her up. It's like 2 a.m. at this point now. My family's at my house thinking, all this, what happened to me? They knew I was going out. I'm not telling them where I'm going, but it's late, and he agrees to pick her back up at that Starbucks. So drive over there, and it's like 3 a.m. and he comes driving up, flashing his brights and just laying on his horn. He pulls up next to me to the passenger side of my car, and he just has his middle finger up on the window, not looking, he's just looking straight ahead, but he has his middle finger up pointing at me to let me know what he thinks of me. And she leans in for a kiss, and she says, do you think we'll see each other again? And the whole time we're I'm waiting for this guy to pull up, and she's talking to me about what her family does for Christmas, and all the Christmas cookies that they make, and that I would love meeting her sister. And I'm just thinking are you you really think after this I'm gonna meet your sister? And it was just mind-boggling how some people are so unaware of what they do and the impact around them. So
that's insane.
Fucked up date.
It has a sort of, not a happy ending, but a not disastrous ending.
It could have turned out much worse. And I was waiting for her to try and say make some claim that I did something to her, because she was passed out for a while. She passed out again in the hotel room. I had to roll up towels and put them underneath her back on her side, because I saw that Breaking Bad episode. I know what happens, and I'm not about to have her Jane out while in my rented hotel room. And I'm also surprised the front desk ladies did not call the police, because I'm carrying this passed out girl up to a hotel room, and just all right, you guys have a good night. I know I will. Wink, wink.
Figure people at hotels see some pretty weird shit.
But they should be required to. I wouldn't have been surprised I wouldn't have been upset if the police would have shown up to find out what was going on, because it was all legal. She was just.
You even probably had grounds to call the cops yourself, to be honest, or at least an ambulance or something.
Maybe an ambulance. maybe an ambulance. You know, I mean, she was drunk and passed out. I don't know if I would have called an ambulance for that. If she would have like started convulsing, or if I wouldn't have been able to wake her up or anything, then yeah, I for sure would have.
To keep things nice and morbid, my last question to you, in a hypothetical scenario where you are dead, your friends and family are tasked with planning your funeral and looking at your final demands and wishes, you have a song preference to be played during your funeral, something to send you out on. Which song would you like played at your funeral?
The Humpty Dance by Digital Underground.
Ooh, can you sing it for us?
Alright, stop what you're doing, cause I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to. I look funny, but y'all making money, geez. So you started snapping and offbeat, and that fucked me up.
Sorry.
Actually, you know, it's not a little known fact, but Tupac was a backup dancer for Digital Underground before he was a gangster rapper. So he was a studio gangster, is what we call it. Went to a performing arts school and everything. So
that's nice. I'm glad you have such an image of yourself that you truly believe you are a thug of some sorts.
Who, me? No, not me. No, that was not gangster. That was my whole point. The Humpty Dance, Digital Underground, this character, his name was Humpty Hump, and he wore a fake nose and glasses. And this whole, it was like a joke rap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it had a lot of, it's a joke. It's all a joke about this.
I wasn't familiar, so.
Well, no, yeah. I understand. You know, you would probably listen to a lot more Warrant and things like that. And
I'm a little more cultured than most white people. I'll have you know I listen to Coldplay and Maroon 5. So.
Oh, well excuse me. I didn't know you liked both garbage and crap. So.
I don't listen to any of that shit. Fuck that shit.
But that's fine. I mean, some people like to tell their dark secrets on the internet. That's
sure.
Cool.
Yeah. I think for me it would be the hamster dance.
I don't even know what that is.
Come on, everybody! It's the hamster dance.
No, so just so you know, I didn't know what the chicken dance was until like 10 years ago, and I've dated nothing. You know.
Have you never been to a wedding?
Girls. I have, but you know, apparently I just didn't pay attention when all the white people got up and started dancing like chickens. You would think I would notice something like that.
I think
being a lover of fried chicken and all.
the contrast between a very solemn, sad ceremony and just to have it end out on some like techno song from the early 2000s or whatever would be a hoot. I think people would get a kick out of it. It's a 10 out of 10 would kill again.
What techno song are you talking about? The hamster dance?
Yeah.
Oh, so I thought we were talking about me. I didn't realize we had already, you know, we'd gone. So is this a show up where you just kind of have people on so that you can brag about yourself and talk about things that you like? I'm just
essentially, yeah. To be honest, I might cut out 90 to 100% of your answers. So,
and if you could, I'd love it if you can cut it out to just make me sound insane, where my answers don't flow at all and I just kind of ramble. That'd be great.
Well, there's not going to be much editing needed there.
I know there won't be any editing needed for that. So fuck you. I already told the joke in my head before you started saying it.
Well, thank you. We've made it to the end of our questions segment, and I've got to say I've learned a lot. You are still an enigma to me. I can't seem to figure you out, and I think that's because you're not any sort of type of person to fit into any specific type of, I don't know, stereotype or clique or group or anything like that. I think you're a pretty interesting individual with a lot of different tastes, and I think we have a lot of the same tastes when it comes to media like movies and television. So I'm curious. I'm going to list off some things here I'd love for you to check out, and I hope you're going to do the same for me. And then we'll meet back again and talk about whether or not we were good in our assessment of one another, okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, why don't we start with television? Now, when I recommend somebody watches a TV show on the show, I mean check out 1 to maybe 3 episodes. Obviously, I don't mean to binge the entire television show. Well, I've got a suggestion for you. There's a Netflix show that I always saw on my list that I kept ignoring until I finally, out of curiosity, decided to check it out. Amazing. Matthew Berry, he's a talented actor, musician, singer-songwriter, and he's hilarious. I think you would get a kick out. If you have a Netflix, I recommend checking out the show Toast of London. They're short episodes. They're very fun and very funny. I think it's that same sort of bizarre sense of humor you'll get a kick out of.
All right.
Let me ask you this. Are you familiar with The Onion?
Yeah. I've been reading The Onion. Like, I go online to read it all the time. I also have like 7 or 8 of the books.
Now, did you know that they made a movie?
I did not.
They made a movie in the early 2000s called ironically enough, the Onion movie, a collection of parody sketches that are just that same type of humor, and it's about it follows the Onion News Network, but it branches off into 100 different things. When I saw it the first time, I thought it was so goddamn funny and so stupid, but so funny. And I just watched it again last night, and it's still just as funny to me as it was then. It's definitely not for everybody, and I definitely recommend the uncut raw version of it too, where it's even a little raunchier. That is a movie I would love to hear what you think about. It's just a very casual, very funny set of sketches, kind of back to back, loosely connected with each other, but it is that same sort of oniony humor that I think you and I both enjoy.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Music. This is interesting. I don't think I got a real grasp of you. You sounded like you like a lot of rap and hip hop kind of type stuff.
Actually, that's thanks for the stereotyping. I'm much more of a punk and classic rock fan. So I would say my favorite bands are old Rancid, old Green Day.
How experimental do you like to get with your music?
Well, so I listen to everything except for country. And I really do listen to everything except for country, unless it's old country like some Charlie Pride or old stuff I can do.
Well, I've got a musical group that I will be happy if you are familiar with, but I hope you're not, because I'd love for you to check out this group called the Avalanches. Are you familiar?
I am not familiar with them.
They are an Australian group. The genre of music, as I've been told, is actually plunderphonics. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, or me. I didn't know forever. Mm-hmm. It's creating a new song and sound out of already existing clips of songs and stuff, but not sampling per se. It's more like just cutting up one small section of a song and using it to make it into a whole new. It's hard to describe, but they've had 2 albums. One that came out in 2001, and 15 years later, in 2016, they released their second long-awaited album. It is probably my favorite album ever, by far.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Wildflower. The Avalanche's Wildflower album. I listened to it when it first came out in July, as I was on my way driving to the Jersey Shore for a beach vacation, and it just is the type of sunny, beachy music, but it's so psychedelic, and it's a good mix of rap and classical, and it's hard to describe, but I think you might get a kick out of it. And I'm definitely I was saving this one for somebody good, because I have a couple of I have several musical tastes. I'm sort of the same thing. I don't listen to modern country at all, but I like everything else. But I knew I was going to save this one for somebody special, and I think you're going to like it.
No, very cool. I will.
You can't say anything bad about it, or else I'll be upset.
Yeah, no,
so.
I will be completely brutally honest with you, just like I am with Mr. Nikotra. But yeah, no, I will check that out. That's great.
And lastly, something I'd like you to check out is a series of videos on YouTube. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Have you ever heard?
Oh wait. Is this the videos of you in the shower that you keep sending me? Because I'm just not going to watch.
Well, no, that's on Daily Motion, you idiot.
No, you're right.
Don't hug me, I'm scared.
Hold on. What is that? That sounds familiar.
It's this sort of nightmarish puppet type thing that just it's a series. They've had I think 6 videos installments where its disguise opens as a children's show, and it just gets horrible. I can't spoil too much for you, but if it's something you've never seen before, I definitely think
I don't think I have. Maybe I've heard about it in a video. Maybe that's why it sounded familiar.
Yeah, you'll love it, man. You're going to be hooked after the first one for sure, and just follow the rabbit hole and how weird it gets. But those are my suggestions to you. I would love for you to check out Toast of London on Netflix, watch the Onion movie, listen to the Wildflower album by the Avalanches, and check out Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared's YouTube channel and watch their videos. Now, my friend, what would you like me to watch?
All right, well, for television, I would go with the increasingly poor decisions of Todd Margaret. Have you heard of that?
I have not.
It's David Cross, who...
I know him,
so
yeah.
I've been a big fan of... who's the guy? I can't remember his name right now. In Better Call Saul, he's Saul. What is his name?
Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, so I've been a big fan of Bob Odenkirk for a long time, since the show that Mr. Show that they had on HBO. And Bob Odenkirk also is the one who discovered and gave Tim and Eric their
Yes,
their
that's
break,
right. Yeah.
which is why he appears in so much of their stuff. So to see him go from that to being in this critically acclaimed show is awesome. But so David Cross, who was kind of like he just kind of got left behind after everything he had done with Arrested Development, and he was kind of the big star out of those two. It's the show that it either, I don't know if it's still on Hulu, but I could get
Well,
it
I have
for you
Hulu,
if it's not.
and I have a couple different.
I don't know
What
if
was
it's
the
still
name of
on
the show
Hulu.
again?
It might not. The Increasingly Poor Decisions of Todd Margaret.
I will.
And in the show, it also has Will Arnett. Is also,
I love. BoJack
also
Horseman
has
is like
role
one
in
of
the
my
show.
favorite shows too.
Well, I mean, to me, it was more of like a reunion
For
of
Arrested
two guys from
Development.
Arrested
Yeah.
Development, and he is just Todd Margaret is a liar, and it starts off as a little white lie, and it just balloons and explodes, and it's 3 or 4 seasons, and the show is just ridiculous. It takes place in. He ends up going to London because of a lie to run some business, and he has no idea what he's doing. He's a complete idiot. He screws everything up and creates an international incident, and it's just such a, like, no one's heard of it, and it's such a funny show. I watch it often when it was on Hulu. I want to say it might have left Hulu a month or 2 ago.
I'll find it. Don't worry. Good. I know nothing about it, so that's good. I'll be going. Blind.
I watch it and I'm laughing so hard I can't breathe, and other people look at it and they go like they don't understand why I find this funny, which is usually a really good sign that it is funny. If not, everyone is laughing with you.
All right, what else you got for me,
Movie.
friend?
Have you heard of Windy City Heat?
No.
So the movie. I first watched this movie. It was on Comedy Central. I want to say like 2003 or something like that. And it was. I need TV. I used to need TV on to go to sleep, and it was midnight. I had to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work, and South Park had just gone off, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna roll over and go to bed. Some stupid movie's coming on, and I roll over to go to sleep, and this movie starts, and before you know it, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm laughing so hard. The people who live above me in the apartment upstairs are stomping on the floor to get me to stop. And the movie's about the greatest troll in the history of the world, and it's the warm-up comedian for Jimmy Kimmel, he actually gave Jimmy Kimmel his break. Jimmy Kimmel was the announcer on his public access show, years before he got on the Man Show, and then later. In Ben Stein's Money, and then the Man Show, and then hosting Jimmy Kimmel Live, he was just the announcer for Don Barris and the Totally Don Show or something like that. And one of the people on this show, so he's very much like Tim and Eric, where he likes to keep a cast of like weirdos around him who don't quite understand that they're weirdos.
Yeah.
And so people who they say they can't believe that Lorne is real. They only need to watch Perry Caravello, who is like a perfect mix of Lorne and Vincent. He's this Italian, he thinks he's the most handsome man in the world. He's a complete asshole, so you don't feel bad for him at all. And they convince him that he's a star of this movie that is being directed by Bobcat Goldthwait. He beat out Carson Daly for the role. Like, it's the whole thing, and the movie that they make is absolutely ridiculous. They mess with him the whole time because he flies into these yelling fits of rage.
Windy City Heat.
Windy City Heat. The full movie is on YouTube. The unedited full movie. I could send you the link if you can't find it. But I asked the great Babsby to watch it, and she was contacting me not long after going, we need to stream this. Like, people need to know about this movie.
Huh, how exciting! I can't wait to check out your stream too. I'll be doing that right after this. Now let's talk music. What do you like, and what do you think I would like?
So, I mean, I like a lot, but do you listen to hip hop at all, or do you listen to rockabilly at all? What do you listen to?
Yeah, whatever you got. If it sounds cool, if it sounds good, I'm gonna dig it. Outside of just the most stereotypical like modern country, I even have a real appreciation for a lot of classic country.
Yeah, no, as do I. So I would say The Power of Moonlight by Tiger Army might be one of my favorite, and they're a rockabilly band. I think out of like Orange County.
Power of Moonlight by who?
Power of Moonlight, Tiger Army.
Okay.
Tiger Army Never Dies. You'll hear that, quite a bit on their album. But yeah, Tiger Army is one of my favorite bands. And if I had to recommend, one album to someone to like really give them an idea of what they see, because I could recommend like 9 different Rancid albums and they all sound completely different, So I would say Tiger Army.
Okay.
For sure.
Cool.
Power Movement.
All right, and now here's the creative part. If you got any other one thing for me to do that I haven't done before?
Yeah. So I recommended Windy City Heat, and I'm going to recommend that you check out the Big 3 podcast on YouTube. Because long after they troll him into thinking he's in a movie, they're able to continue it 15 years later, where he's in these podcasts. He thinks Johnny Knoxville is trying to steal his role from the original Windy City Heat 1 and put his penis in a mousetrap. They snapped a mousetrap on his penis in order for him to win the role in this movie that doesn't exist. And they make up fake characters, and he keeps telling the story over and over again of how he got into show business by giving a man some pleasure with his hand.
Oh my goodness.
And they use it to troll him. They are constantly giving out his address during the podcast, and it's one of the most creative, it's the funniest thing. But I'd like you to check out, if you look up Perry Caravello, Rosie O'Donnell, they made him think they were making a biopic about the Big 3, which is Don Barris, a guy called Mole, and Perry, and they made him think that Rosie O'Donnell was playing him in the movie. And he contacted her on Twitter, and they actually had like a battle in DMs where she's trying to convince him she's not playing him in a movie, and he does not believe her. And it's like one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
That sounds awful, and I'm so excited. That sounds right up my alley. That's great. These are all things that I've never heard of. And that was the point of the show, to get out and try to check out some new things. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. Let's meet back in about a week, and we'll pick up where we left off then, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. See you then. And we're back. It's been a short week. We actually were able to plow through the suggestions from each other pretty quickly, and we had some free time before the end of the week and thought we could meet and discuss what we've just witnessed and viewed ourselves in our own time. I'm hoping that Wes has enjoyed what I've suggested to him, and I'm sure he's going to be interested to hear what I have to say about the things he gave me. Let's first talk about the week that you've had, Wes. How have you been? I hope you've been able to find time to watch all these. I know you're a pretty busy guy.
Yeah, no, this week has been really, really tough. Had some issues with a female that had been stalking me for a few months, and she went to jail. So that happened, and I'm dealing with some court stuff with that. And then on top of that, just, some other things going on at home, but I did find some time in between these things to enjoy some of the suggestions that you made. So
yes, you've had quite a wild week, and I'm happy that you have taken so much of your week to talk with me and then to go check these things out. I hope you've enjoyed what I suggested. Why don't we start by talking about television shows? You told me to check out The Increasingly Poor Decisions of Todd Margaret. For whatever reason, yes, the season I purchased on YouTube, which I thought was the first season, I think was actually the third season. And for whatever reason, the first two were a lot harder to come by. But I got into it like no problem. I picked up everything right away. I watched the whole third season in like a day and a half. It was great. It was so funny. I love that cast. What's his name? The lead guy. David Cross.
David Cross, yeah.
He was great. He was brilliant. He's the funniest I've ever seen him in a role, outside of Alvin and the Chipmunks, obviously. So,
obviously, let me tell you that was the third season was like, I want to say 7 years after season 2 wrapped.
Yeah, that's what was confusing about it.
Well, and so it's really weird that you watched season 3 and you really got into it, because season 3 is actually like tearing down everything that happened from season 1 and 2. So I'm gonna get. I have seasons 1 and 2. I'm gonna send those to you because I really think you have to see 1 and 2, and you'll get a whole new appreciation for season 3.
That'd be sweet.
Brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The way that they were able to, I don't know, just really rewrite everything, and even who David Cross's character is, season 3 is completely different from. It's a flip flop of who he actually was in seasons 1 and 2. So yeah, I love that show. I would say it's one of my favorite shows, and no one's heard of it. So whenever you bring it up, people just kind of give you that look.
Well, anybody watching or listening now, I definitely recommend it. It's probably some of the best comedy television writing I've seen in a long time. And you were supposed to check out Toast of London. Did you get to enjoy a couple of episodes of that, or at least one?
So I did, and I watched 2 episodes, and it reminded me, what I love about British comedy, because I grew up watching Blackadder and Are You Being Served and Mr. Bean, is the way they just kind of jump into situations. So I liked the way that episode 1 was set up. It just jumped into it. And it almost felt like sketch comedy. If you ever watched The State or any of those shows where everything kind of rolls into each other, and maybe something that happened earlier will roll into what was happening later. I love the acting. It's British comedy, Canadian comedy have always really resonated with me, probably because of my strong British and Canadian roots. But I really like it, and I can tell this is one of those shows that gets better with second and third viewings because you're noticing things that you haven't noticed before.
That's right. That's been my I was mildly impressed with the first episode. I decided to give the second a shot, and before I realized that I was marathoning the whole series, and after some time had passed, I went back and watched the first episode again. I was like, oh yeah, this really alludes to a lot of the reoccurring themes and bits throughout the series. So I love that actor, the lead actor, Matt Berry. He's also in the show on FX called What We Do in the Shadows, which is based on that movie, I believe. He's in that. He's hilarious. He's had guest spots on Portlandia, and he was very funny in that. Yeah, he's popping up consistently in a lot of the things that I like to watch.
I hear that.
Well, I'm glad you got to kick that.
I did. Yeah, I really like that, and I'm going to continue watching that one.
Cool. Okay. Movies. You took quite a risk here and gave me something that was not available anywhere else except for free on YouTube, was almost a decade and a half years old, and was an entirely independent prank movie revolving around this one individual who, when you described the lead character to me, Perry, as a cross between Vince and Lorne, I thought you were just being funny, oh yeah, those are two terrible people, and this is what he's like. No, the whole time I was thinking, going back and forth between that's what Vince would do, that's what Lorne would do, that's what Vince would do, that's what Lorne would do. It was perfect. That's the best description of a character, not even a real person, I think I've ever heard. The movie Windy City Heat. Fantastic. It was fun. It was hard to watch. I'm not gonna lie. I watched about the first 30 minutes of it and then had to stop for a day or two because I was like, I can't. It was so cringy, but it was perfect, and it got way better as it went on too. And it was exactly what I think. They mapped out the script to be what probably a 7th grader thinks the movie industry is like. And he didn't blink twice, when there was the casting agent is here. At the same time, we need to find this beautiful girl. What are we going to do? And just what about her? And they're like, that's brilliant.
Yeah. First Perry says it.
The supporting cast of Don and Mole.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. he gets ignored. Nobody wants to shake his hand. That would drive me crazy. Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, is the gay stylist.
On the set of
I thought
Oklahoma.
That came out of nowhere. That was funny. Fucking Dane Cook is in it. There was a ton of famous people in there, and they were, most of them were playing themselves.
Well, Dane Cook did not play himself. He played Roman Polanski, right? Wasn't that his?
Oh yeah. The names Roman Polanski, Hiroshima Nagasaki.
Hiroshima Nagasaki. Yeah, Susan B. Anthony.
Oh man.
His assistant was named Burt Ward. The limo driver was named what's his name? Travis Bickle, the taxi driver, the Pacino or De Niro, whoever the hell played him. The limo driver who attacks him. Yeah, he's named after the character from Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle. So everything, and I love
he was pretty wild.
The president of show business at the end. Like, this is a real person, and that trophy still sits proudly in Perry Caravello's house today.
I believe it.
So,
I give it probably an 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5. I would say.
Yeah, that's strong.
And how about the Onion movie, my friend?
So I watched the Onion movie, and I didn't get a chance to watch that until today. And it really reminds me a lot of the movies that I grew up binging, like Amazon Women on the Moon, Kentucky Fried Movie. I can't remember, that was another. My brother used to bring home these VHS tapes, and it was just like little short clips. And what I liked is that something that would happen early, like it's a blink and you'll miss it type thing. There was a thing on stereotypes, and little known stereotypes, and black people love taffy. And then later there's a scene, and this girl's some taffy, and she goes, "God, fucking black people." And it's just, it had nothing to do with the actual scene that had just happened. And I'm waiting for like a black person to jump out or something, but like nothing at all. And it was, I love how absurd everything was. In the ending, Rodney Dangerfield showing up with this famous Caddyshack line. And no, I really like that. And that's another one of those movies that I know, third, fourth, fifth time, you're still noticing stuff that you hadn't noticed before. But it was very
funny?
much...
That's another movie I've told people to watch a dozen times, and nobody's ever heard of it.
Yeah, which is weird because, like I told you, I've been reading The Onion since 2001, to the point where they would release a new issue online every Thursday, and I would every Thursday go and read the new full issue of The Onion online. So for me not to know that there was a movie that had come out about it is very strange.
It's a brilliant publication, the only news source that I trust.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they make up news just as good as anyone. So I would give that, I would say like 8 out of 10 for The Onion movie. Just like any of these types of movies, there's always, hit or miss type things, and there's going to be your favorites. But I also think it's one of those things that maybe, depending on the day you see it, will be your favorite sketch from that movie. I like the little attention to detail, like the white guy who was arrested for being the black guy. And when he's in court, it's like a very short clip, but he's wearing a suit that like the black guys wear in the NBA, NFL draft, like the high button. It's like if you didn't know that, you wouldn't even notice it. But like that to me was really funny.
Wait, white guy in the court? Do you mean the
Negro?
Negro?
Yes, exactly. The Negro. And then when all the Negroes are outside riding, and it's all a bunch of white guys, and that's just. Well, like they have bricks and they're just.
You
like,
said you texted me when you were. You texted me when you were watching. You said, "Oh, David Schumacher just walked in."
No, not David Schumacher. It was Cody Green when he first.
Oh yeah, Cody Green. Yeah.
Because David Schumacher had his sister drive him. Cody Green pulled up in the Escalade. That dude pulled up in a big SUV too. So
that's right.
He just reminded me of Cody Green walking up there.
That's great.
So yeah, I like that a lot.
How about music? When you first described Tiger Army to me and described it as rockabilly, which is a thing that I have heard of, but never actually like knew what it was. Like I wouldn't be able to tell you what it is if I heard it. Now I get it. Now I understand what it is, and they're a group that the specific album, Power of Moonlight. Most of the songs, I'm not gonna lie, kind of blended together, like they all sounded the same, or had at least a similar rhythm and sound. But they were good, and there were a couple standouts for me. Towards Destiny, the title track, Power of Moonlight, and When Night Comes were some of my favorite tracks on there. I threw it on when I was driving for work in the car and listened to it all the way through, and I really liked it. I think I'd like to go back and check out some of their other work. They're a very nearly undiscovered group, it looks like. They're not necessarily making new music. I don't know if they're making new music, but most of their views on their videos aren't even over like 200,000.
Yeah, I think they're done actually. I don't think they're still recording anymore. So.
It was a deep dive, but I liked it. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, okay. Well, so for me, with Wildflower by the Avalanches, I listen to that driving up and down the coast. And I don't have any specific tracks that so what it reminded me of was like 1995, 96, living in San Diego, and my buddies making mixtapes You know, like you just get a bunch of songs that you like and you put them on a tape, and then we would go drive and you would just let it go from side to side, you know, and that's what it felt like. Like, I love the way everything flowed together, the samples. I wasn't expecting it. I don't know, maybe because the way you described it, I wasn't expecting hip hop.
To be honest, I wasn't expecting it either when the album dropped.
I don't know what I was expecting. I was really open to it.
At least a quarter of it is some kind of really interesting hip hop. But that's not the whole album, though. It's just like peaks and valleys of it, you know?
Well, no, yeah, but I wasn't expecting it at all. So like when I'm hearing it, it was so cool. I don't know if you've heard of it's 99 Neighbors, and I discover a lot of music on accident because I'm looking for like one sentence. Like I search for a song that says "fuck no," and then I'll find like these songs, and then I'll have to, because I'm looking for something for a video. And I found, and it's 99 Neighbors is a collective group of like all these different artists, and they record under the name 99 Neighbors. And so it's an eclectic mix of different music and styles, and sometimes they collaborate. And that's what it reminded me of. It just reminded me though of like the coast and like really things just flowing. And I don't know. I can't really explain it, but it took me back to high school.
That's so I had such a similar reaction because like I heard it for the first time drop when I was on my way to a beach vacation, and that just image of driving along the shore too was like exactly the mood and the mindset that comes to mind every time I listen to this album. They're a fantastic group. Their first album is a little different than this. I don't know if you'd like it. You should give it a try. They only have these two albums, but just the other day they dropped their new single, and I think there's some new music coming, so I'm very excited about that. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Had a pretty similar reaction to what I did.
Well, normally when I hear something for the first time, I don't like it. You know, like even some of my favorite albums, Jay-Z, The Blueprint.
I've always been that way until this show that I've been doing, and people have suggested me things, and I go in with a really open mind. All of a sudden, I'm more likely to listen to and hear things out.
Yeah, I don't know what it is like. Well, because you know the first Wu-Tang album was highly recommended. Everyone loved it, and it normally takes me a little bit to like, okay, I really like this, or I don't like this, or this stands out to me. But from the first time I started listening to that, like I'm rewinding. I want to hear this one over again because I really like that. And, you know, then I'm like, I want to hear that again, and so it was different. It was a different listening experience for sure because it was so different.
What would you rate it?
I would give that one a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I really like that.
That's great. All right, I'm glad I got to pick something that suit your taste. And lastly, this is going to be one I'm anxious to hear the most, to be honest. Our fourth separate activity to give each other just happened to be checking out two different things. One was a podcast, and one was this series of videos on YouTube. The podcast you recommended for me was the same three guys from the Windy City Heat movie. The Big Threes are called, and they have the Big Three podcast. Now, I only listened to one of these in the car because that's just all I had time for.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I liked listening to the podcast more than I even did watching the movie, and I was thrilled to see how many episodes there are because I'm gonna go watch them all. There were some. I was like screaming, laughing in the car at random parts. Some of my favorite, like Perry, they just try to get Perry to talk so much, and the second he tries to like join the conversation or be funny, they go, "Perry, shut the fuck up!"
Be a professional.
Yeah. And Mole, who is like my least favorite character in the movie, in the movie, but in the podcast, his character is just to be an idiot and say dumb, unfunny shit. But every now and then he gets in like a genuine one-liner that nobody pays attention to because he's just the idiot. Nobody realizes that what he actually said was just really funny, and I just wasn't expecting it the first time I hear it.
So do you know who Mole is? He's the voice of John Quincy Adams. Like he's really like the main. He's like a really smart guy. He's like the main person behind all of it. But Perry he's an actor named Tony Barbieri, but Perry only knows him as Mole. He's never known him. So like, just imagine that you know this person and they only know you as a character that you play. So he only knows him as Mole.
And like Lorne, just never questioned anything.
and then he did. After Windy City Heat came out, the press was talking about it, and they talked about Mole, played by actor Tony Barbieri. And so Perry was like, "What the hell is this?" So they told him that Mole was so impressed with Perry and his acting, he decided he wanted to become Italian. So he went and had his name changed to Tony Barbieri. But every time he brings it up now, he'll say like Tony Boboloni, because he acts like he doesn't remember the name that he chose. And Perry's just like so tickled that Mole was so impressed by him that he went to become an Italian.
Makes sense. Makes sense. There were like 100 episodes I saw.
Oh, more.
I'm sad. I don't think they're making any more, right?
There's more than 100, and they started recording again recently. The podcast came back like 4 months ago. Tom Brennan, who is Perry's manager, him and I have been in discussions so I could work with Perry, and he was one who told me like, oh yeah, the podcasts are back on. So.
Whoa, that's sweet. I hope that works out.
So do I.
Wow. Well, I'm thrilled. I'm gonna keep checking those out. As far as podcasts go, I listen to one, maybe two, as it stacks up. I think it's too early for me to tell. If they're all like the one I listen to, then I'm excited because I'll definitely keep listening to it. 8 out of 10.
Yes. I don't even know what you listen to, but the answer is yes. They are all like what you listen to.
That's great. I think I listened to the number 2 because that was just the first one that came up for some reason instead of episode 1. Episode 1 wasn't on YouTube, or at least as far as I could find. But the second one, I knew exactly what it was.
You could jump around to episode 90, then back to, and it's the same shit. Like, but it doesn't get old because they, with the $10 shout outs, they're always getting him to recite his address on the podcast, or like someone's writing in and saying his address, and they'll read it and he'll get mad, and Don will be like, I'm just reading what's on the card. You want me to not read what's on the card?
They're so mean to him. I don't feel bad.
But like, he's such a dick.
Yeah, I know.
He's such a dick, you don't feel bad for him. So it's like Lorne, like it's like Lorne. He's such a dick that you don't feel bad for the troll.
That's right.
And then the bad news for me is and here's where I fucked up. I forgot Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. So here's what I'm gonna do. We can wrap this up, and then I can watch it, and then we can record that part later tonight. If you're down, just that one part.
Actually, listen to after the interview here, where we're going to have a special phone-in segment by Mr. Wes Moast, who's going to give his unfiltered thoughts on Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. And I'll just add it into the end of the video.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can just add the recording on later.
To be honest, this is more than I ever wanted to get to know you or talk to you, and I haven't really enjoyed much of it.
I didn't even know who you were until like a week ago, so let's not start, talking like a Mr. Big Shot. I had never heard of Dan Heisenberg. I didn't know what a Dan Heisenberg was.
Well, I always try to when somebody like a sick child wants to get on the show or something or reach out to me, I'll humor them.
Well, I really appreciate it because I had nothing better to do on Friday night than sit around and talk about.
This was a blast. Yeah, this is one of I think we had. I was just editing our first half of our conversation. We had a great discussion that really went on longer than I had planned, but I was so happy the way I edited it down. It's in a pretty manageable time now, and it's such a great call that we got to have together.
Oh, good.
And, hopefully those listening. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because those did drag on forever, and that's my bad, but I'm glad that was good for you.
It's easier when the guest does more talking because I'm the one that pauses and says a lot more, so I had to edit out a lot less, which is nice.
Great.
But I hope those that are listening, if they're not already subscribed to Mr. Wes Moast, go check him out, his channel. He's got some great content. Check out some of the stuff we got to talk about today. We definitely think somebody out there is going to enjoy the music or shows that we've discussed on the show. Wes, do you want to send us off with anything?
No.
Great. Goodbye.
My first impression on Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is don't go down this rabbit hole. And what I mean by that is just in the first episode, I'm watching it and I'm looking for things because I know that all is not what it seems. This isn't just a simple mock kids show. This is one of those videos where you're supposed to find clues. And I watched just watching the first two, I noticed the numbers 619 a lot. The calendar said June 19th in both episodes. but then there were also other occurrences of the numbers 6 and 19 together. So for me, someone who obsesses over top 10 lists and mysteries and uncovering things, this is one of those videos that's really cool because when you can watch it and just be entertained by what's going on, but I also know that there's a meaning, there's something else that you're supposed to be able. This is an interactive thing, and I saw a video when I was searching for the other episodes called "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared" explained, and I'm sure it explains the theories and kind of goes over those things. So after I watch these and try and figure it out for myself, it's always fun to go back and watch the explanation videos and see what other people found, what they were able to uncover. So that's my impressions on this. This is not a quick watch thing. I can get through it in 30 minutes, but this is one of those things you could spend hours on watching over and over and over again to uncover clues if you have that kind of time. So I would give this one a 7 out of 10 for entertainment purposes because I like working with puppets. I mean, I've done it quite a few times now. I think it's a funny medium to do adult stuff in, but a 9 out of 10 as far as uncovering. There's some things here, some really cool clues and mysteries. So anyone who's into stuff like that, I highly recommend. And it's twisted. Like if you're into just twisted weird, and then also some entertainment and fun underneath it, like definitely give this a shot.